Hi, my name is Dr. Mitch Braddon, and I'd like to, in this little presentation, answer the questions that I get over and over and over again for the 10 plus years that I've been doing this. And one of the main questions that I get that is, what makes you different than other chiropractors? And the bottom line of that is that I say that I can balance out your short leg that you're going to have, that we've already talked about, for better and longer than anybody else can. If I ask my 5-year-old son to take one of his shoes off and walk around for the rest of his life without one shoe on, to me it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out something's going to start hurting him. I just don't know what. Because structurally you just can't handle that kind of imbalance. And whomever can balance it out for the greatest length of time and the best is going to make you the most stable and make you come to the chiropractor less often than they do some other chiropractor. Now, one of the main things is the short leg isn't really short. It's a mechanical illusion. And what happens with that is that this bone right here moves back and forth like this. It's attached to this bone right here. Watch what happens to the length of this when this rocks forward. Do you see visually how it gets longer and it gets shorter? So it's not that you have actually a short leg, it's a tilting of the hips. Now that tilting of the hips causes the rest of the spine, in this scenario here, to kind of tilt to one side. Let's say if I take one of my shoes off and I stand like this. Well, we don't stand like this because I'm very obviously crooked. What we do is we make ourselves look even. Now you can see that this is what scoliosis looks like. Chiropractic in general will eliminate the reason for the scoliosis, which is an unlevel pelvis. But this is what the spine looks like. Now this tilting of the spine like this causes the bones of the spine to kind of curve and to kind of move around a little bit. You can see this nerve right here. You can see even if the bone moves to the side, the nerve gets pinched. That's what causes all the pains that people have. Anything that people take Advil, Tylenol, whatever their pain reliever of choice is, chiropractic can get rid of that because it's pinching of the nerve that's causing it. And that pinching of the nerve is caused from the short leg. Now, if the short leg is what's causing the problem, what causes the short leg? The short leg actually is caused from this little bone right up in here called your atlas. When we talk about atlas orthogonal, orthogonal means where the atlas is level and we draw a line through the middle of our head. If two lines cross at 90-degree angles, that's called orthogonal in an engineering sense. The atlas can move a couple different directions. It can move to the left or it can move to the right. I'm going to use myself as an example. My atlas is moved to the left. So my head in my driver's license pictures of old looks like this a little bit. Well, in essence, I don't stand like this, and I'm going to over-exaggerate. I don't stand like this. I make my eyes as level as I can. And you can see visually I still have a straight spine down here. However, without fixing this, I'm going to make me look straight. So it's the short leg that causes the spine to look like this, but it's this bone up here called your atlas that makes a short leg. So what we're going to do in this clinic, in this presentation, what they're going to talk about is if you have an atlas that's tilted like this, and you adjust it downward like this to level it off, the whole rest of the spine evens itself out. And that's what we do. Now, the next thing, let me put my shoe back on, is we take a picture that looks like this. If you look at the top picture, you're going to see that it obviously somebody visually looks like they have a short leg. Nobody's touching them, they're just lying there as peaceful as they can, and we took a Polaroid picture of their shoes. They obviously, from that top picture when you're looking at it, you can see the short leg. You can see the bottom picture obviously has an even leg. That's what I fix. This is the picture of a massage therapist who rents some space out from a chiropractor in Cumming. He got adjusted at 10:15 in the morning by that chiropractor. He then came at noon at lunchtime and massaged another chiropractor and got adjusted by that chiropractor at 12:30. 2:30 in the afternoon, what you're looking at in that picture is what I saw. He still had a short leg. I adjusted him, I evened his short leg out, probably not for the first time in that day, but probably the third time. However, the key with that is he came back the next day and he still had even legs. That means the other two chiropractors that he'd gone to probably evened his short leg out, but in a drive to my office, he got a short leg again. I adjusted him, he came back the next day, and it was still even legs. The adjustment that I'm going to do is going to last for a day or longer. Theirs won't last very long at all. That's kind of how I market myself. You can go to your regular chiropractor, drive to my office, I'll take a picture of your short leg that you'll still have even though you just got adjusted. I can even your short leg out and you can come back days later and it's still even. Where is that massage therapist in that example going to be more stable? With an even leg or a short leg? You can kind of make that decision yourself. But the whole basic logic of that is that if I took my 5-year-old son Morgan and said, Morgan, take one of your shoes and walk around the rest of your life without one shoe on, it doesn't take a rocket scientist for me to figure out something's going to hurt that boy. I just don't know what and I don't know when. It could start hurting him when he's 5, it could start hurting him when he's 95. But something's going to hurt him, and that's what I do as preventative nature, is to correct the short leg so that I can fix the potential problems that he's going to have later on. Now you're going to see a mini history of a little bit about chiropractic and this technique. And then after this, I'm going to come in and explain a little more history to you in the end.
Many years ago, chiropractors discovered that adjustments of the atlas had a healing effect on certain physical conditions. The atlas, located at the very top of the spine, is the connection point between the head and the rest of your body. The position of the atlas can affect your posture as well as the alignment of your entire spine and pelvis. When the atlas becomes subluxated or out of alignment, your body compensates by shifting the angle of the spine and pelvis in relation to your head. This skeletal shift is maintained in order to allow body balance, or what is often referred to as the body's center of gravity. The resulting stress and distortion of the spine may apply pressure on nerves that cause severe pain, organ dysfunction, loss of mobility, and even a reduction in the body's natural resistance to illness. The modern-day science of atlas adjusting was first discovered and experimented with by Dr. B.J. Palmer in the early 1900s. Dr. Palmer's father is credited with being the founder of chiropractic. His research was then expanded and refined by Dr. John F. Grostic. Chiropractic atlas orthogonality came into its own through the efforts and work of this man, Dr. Roy Sweat. Having studied under both Dr. Palmer and Dr. Grostic, Dr. Sweat was tremendously impressed with results gained through atlas adjustment. He decided to devote his professional career toward the refinement, continued research, education, and development of atlas adjustment procedures. It is mainly his efforts in this specialized field that has made chiropractic atlas orthogonality the science it is today.
Okay, I would like to show you your x-rays. This is the sagittal or lateral view. This is the frontal or median view, and this is the horizontal view or vertex view. And how the atlas, instead of being level, is tilted. So we're going to take our instrument, put on the atlas, bring the atlas back down to level, where the atlas is level, and the cephalic line or the skull is vertical, and then the cervical spine is vertical. It's what we call the head, the atlas, and the cervical spine in an orthogonal position. This is our scanning palpation chart. This chart shows the head and the atlas here in the cervical spine. The head should sit vertical on the atlas should sit level, and the cervical spine should be vertical to be in an orthogonal position. Your x-rays show that the atlas has displaced and subluxated and moved out of position. This stylus is a stylus that's similar to the one we use on the adjusting instrument, is placed on the transverse process or the tip of the atlas, and then the percussion force is applied here to bring the atlas back down to a level position.
Dr. Sweat, who also has a genius for invention, designed a percussion adjusting device known as the Atlas Orthogonal Percussion Instrument. This instrument is used by chiropractors worldwide who have received extensive specialized training in its program and operation. This high-tech instrument eliminates guesswork in calculating the proper angle of adjustment to be applied to the atlas. Dr. Sweat is also responsible for the development of a state-of-the-art chiropractic X-ray system which is used by the Atlas Orthogonal doctor. Technically, the instrument delivers a mechanical impulse to a metal stylus by means of a pressure-controlled actuator. The strength of the impulse is determined by the degree of compression applied to the device, controlling the actuator back pressure. This impulse is transmitted to a stylus, exciting a compressional wave in the stylus material. The stylus, which is interfaced with the patient, then applies a portion of the wave to the atlas, in order to accomplish the appropriate adjustment. In layman terms, the instrument allows the doctor to adjust the atlas angle with a very high degree of precision while applying minimal physical pressure. This unique feature eliminates most patient discomfort during treatment.
This is the Atlas percussion adjusting instrument. Top of the head's to the right. The stylus is over the Atlas. Here's the adjustment. Now let me examine the C1 and the C2 nerve roots and the cervical spine. Let me examine C1 and the C2 and the rest of the cervical spine. And they're not as sore as they were in there on the right order. Okay, now I'd like for you to lie on your back. And we want to measure the legs and see if the legs came down level or close to level. And we bring these to the center. And those, and it looks like the legs came level for us. So it looks like the adjustment did exactly what we wanted it to do.
X-rays are taken before and after your initial adjustment. These allow your doctor to confirm that correct atlas adjustment has been accomplished.
Walter, this is a model of your spine. Our X-rays show us that your atlas is misaligned to the right. So we're going to lay you on your side, bring our adjusting instrument in, and correct the misalignment, like so. This is a percussion adjusting instrument. There's a solenoid inside of here that comes down and hits this stylus like a hammer. Sets up a compressional energy wave that travels through the stylus without any forward excursion. And 3 pounds come out the tip of the stylus. Put your finger here and feel this. That's all there is to it. Now, Walter, I'd like you with your right side up. Okay, now let's sit up again. That's all there is to it. That's as rough as it gets, Walter.
There are many health problems which may be a direct result or secondary product of a misaligned atlas. If you are suffering any of these symptoms, atlas orthogonal adjustment treatments may help you. In most cases, you can expect a 50% improvement within a 4-week period.
Now that you've watched that previous presentation, what I'd like to add is just a little bit of a curiosity ditty that I know of. If you went to any research department of any chiropractic college and you walked in there and said, "What do you people do in here?" 80% of what they do is they work on the atlas. That's what they consider research. Now, in 1919, at Palmer Chiropractic College in Davenport, Iowa, which is pretty much the longest standing chiropractic college, it's been in existence for about 90 years. In 1919, the man who ran the research department was doing atlas work. In 1920, they made him president of the school. In 1920, he announced to the students, "You can't adjust anything but the atlas." That policy of only adjusting one bone continued from 1920 to 1952. For 32 years, the students couldn't adjust anything but the atlas. So all the presentation that you just listened to was based on all the research that came out of that 32-year period. Because if 32 years goes by and you can only adjust one bone, trust me, you get really good at adjusting that one bone. And that's the secret to one of those techniques. Now, the interesting part for me is when I get my atlas adjusted on the machine that you've already seen, mine is adjusted as 18 degrees this way and 6 degrees this way. That kind of precision is impossible to do with a hand or any kind of a machine. The machines that you've seen in the pictures can do that kind of precision. But the point is that if you adjust me as 18 and 6, I can come back tomorrow and I'll still have an even leg. If you alter that by only 2 degrees, in a half hour I have a short leg, and I have a headache and a low back pain. So why even do it? If you're not going to do it precisely and right, don't even waste your time. But whoever can level out those legs for the longest is going to keep you the most stable. That's what I want you to be, is the most stable for your whole life. Another common question I get is, you're taking these x-rays of me. I don't really like x-rays, don't want them. I understand they're needed for the technique, but how often do you have to take them? And I'm just going to give you one example of one gentleman who loves what I do, loved what I do 10 years ago, and still loves what I do. Because when that little tilt that I showed you in the little diagram I explained already, his atlas was tilted like this. When I measured it on the x-rays, it was 14 millimeters, which is about this big. Then I adjusted him and I took another picture and it came down to 11. That was good. I like that. My goal is to make him even, but for that one first visit, he went from 14 to 11. A couple years went by and he loved what I did, but his adjustment wouldn't hold for a day. So we took some new x-rays. Our starting point at that point was not 11, but it was 7. So in that couple years, it had come down a little bit more. The next x-ray I took after I was through adjusting him, it came down to 4. Well, I like that. 2 years went by, the adjustment wouldn't hold for a day. And still, I'm seeing him less often and less often, but it wouldn't hold for a day. Our starting point at this x-ray was 3 millimeters. The next picture came down to 1. Well, I like that. 2 years went by again, it wouldn't hold for a day. Our starting point was 2 millimeters, and it went down to -2. Oops, took him too far. The next year went by, it wouldn't hold for a day. Now we're going from 2 to 0, which is perfectly right where I want it. The whole idea with there is, first I adjusted him here, then I adjusted him here, then oops, down here, then here. And this is where he's the most stable. That's the idea. That's the only time that I have to take x-rays again if the adjustment won't hold for a 24-hour period. But if you love what I do, I'll just continue using the numbers that have worked fine for you so far.